Tchaikovsky's second piano concerto, which he wrote in 1880. So this piece I had to learn completely from the beginning till the end. I never heard it before. When I got the score, of course, it was, oh, it's a huge composition and long cadences, which makes my life easier, of course. But the second movement, it's really nice theme once again in D major. And concertmaster and solo cellist are playing the solos. Very easygoing, very touching. They will find the good old style color with the glissandi and flautandi sound, and it just works. I would say the first movement is, my approach is a little bit more classical style of playing. It needs to be elegant, like Rossini. More elegant. And the piano player, the soloist, I've never met before. He won the Chopin competition, and it's great to meet these young talents.
When we talk about him, we think about ballet music, actually. And in this second concerto, we can actually really feel it, you know. I think his music is very deep in the first sense, but also expressed in a very, you know, naive way. So you don't get this feeling of the philosophy that he's talking, but more about the fun, you know. So that's why his music is really appealing to the general public, and that everybody's, you know, really easy to understand and likes it. People all know that when they see the second concerto on the program, it's a bit of a question mark because we all think about the first one. But actually, you know, there is actually 5 compositions by him with orchestras, and I think only people knows the first concerto. So this second concerto is basically a very self-motivation work. So he really wanted to compose it while after the Fourth Symphony was premiered in France. And he was, you know, bored because he didn't get any commission. So he just had to compose something, and that was one of his compositions. And he actually started from the third movement. I don't know any other concertos that has this kind of special form, especially with 3 cadenzas in the first movement, and of course the trio in the second movement, which makes it very special. I think the longest one is nearly around 5 or 6 minutes, so it's a lot of a one-man show a bit. This is not it was not my initial point of playing this program, but it just happened to be like this. But at the same time, with great contrast of lyrical and the melodic themes from the second theme, which appears very surprising and randomly, you know, in the middle of the tutti. I think this work for me is the cadenza itself, actually. With the list, Don Juan and Don Giovanni, I think it's the hardest pianistic work I have played. It was actually 3 years ago. I just wanted to play a Tchaikovsky piece with orchestra, and I just didn't want to play the first concerto. So I think the other choices are pretty obvious, right? Because the third one is just an unfinished piece. So the only, I think, matured, you know, real work is this one. And I played first one time with my school orchestra, and you know, everybody I think was really surprised because they just didn't know about the piece. And I still remember this concertmaster, you know, from the school. She was not prepared for this because there's a huge solo in the second movement, and you know, usually they all side read, the orchestra members, and I think she was just not ready for a huge like solo part suddenly, which was funny. I think they are really responsive to my playing. You know, even though the rehearsal yesterday, I remember it's so late and everybody is so exhausting after this huge symphony rehearsal. But they're super responsive, and Santi really listen to what I'm saying, you know, and gives another chance, you know, to try out something. You know, even though we just passed one time, for example, the third movement, And there was, because I like to put a lot of personal touch there and there, from some random spots. He's just following, and it just happened to be just pass one time. We didn't even need to actually repeat. So that was very, very surprising for me actually. But this is, I think, the greatest feeling you can have.